very lovely Tuesday morning to you, our Camnet TV viewers. We're here to present to you nothing but the very best of what is happening on the community desk. This is your breakfast show today, 6 June 2023. I am your host, Zipporah Mshala, joined by my colleague, Nelson Zulu. Good morning, Nelson.
Good morning to you, Zipporah. How are you?
I'm very well. At least today I didn't
You didn't mix up things,
I didn't almost say my beautiful colleague in reference to Miriam. Yeah, but how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing quite well, especially that it's becoming a little bit cold and there's now a need to begin to adjust. I don't know how you're feeling this.
But
this
I think
morning.
it's, anyway, in the morning it's a bit chilly, but in the afternoon it's very hot. Yesterday I remember I was even saying, is this June? It was hot when we were in the field yesterday. I felt so drained, you know. So anyway, I'm sure with the climate change issues, by the middle of June, we're going to have extreme cold. And you know, speaking of climate change, our guest for today is actually going to touch on climate change issues. For example, Nelson, we've got Constraints Development Fund. We're just putting up projects, you know, a clinic, a school, this. Are we putting in any infrastructure aimed at combating climate change?
Yep.
Are we putting up training institutions aimed at combating clematech change? What are we doing at community level?
And do the people in communities know that there's a portion that has just been allocated to fighting climate change in society?
So I think to you, our viewers, expect your input. I want to open up our phone lines with our guest, Mr. Ezra Banda, who is the Executive Director of the Keepers Zambia Foundation, and they deal with climate change. So I think we have been taking climate change really, we've not been giving it the attention that it deserves at community level. Mostly it has been, you know, on the technical level, stakeholders and all that. But what about that person? What about that pupil in school? What part can they play? So that is our topic today, community participation in fighting climate change. But just now we'll take a look at what the doctors have for us this morning on the Health Corner.
Hi, good morning and welcome to the Health Corner here on the Breakfast Show. I am Dr. Nakubia Namfaya. So this week we are talking about a very interesting topic. We are talking about tuberculosis, and we really want to understand what are some of the causes of tuberculosis, or what are some of the risk factors of tuberculosis, and also some of the symptoms, so that we can be able to recognize these symptoms and seek treatment early. And it's important for you to know what type of TB that you have, so that you can know the duration or the time period in which to treat that TB, because there's a way that TB is treated depending on which part of the body is affected, and also depending on whether it's a new condition or a condition or a relapse that is occurring. So yesterday we talked about what is TB, and we say that TB is an infection that is caused by a bacteria called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And so this bacteria can be transmitted from person to person when you inhale aerosols from the environment that are infected with TB. So today we want to know what are some of the risk factors of TB. Who are the people who are at risk of having this infection? So the number one risk factor is people who have a relative or who are staying with somebody who has TB. So if you are staying with someone with TB, you are at a high risk of having this infection. Or if you've come in contact with somebody who has had TB, especially in places that are very crowded. So crowded places where you can't come in contact with someone who has TB and you don't even know. Sometimes you might know that this person has TB. Sometimes you might not know. So overcrowded places have a high risk of transmission for TB. And like I said, people who are living with somebody in the house who has TB are also at a high risk. And the other risk is that people who are staying with somebody who has multi-drug resistant TB. So if the person that you're staying with has multi-drug resistant TB or MDR TB, the risk of you getting the TB is very high because it's more transmissible, because it's more transmitted to other people who do not have TB. The other risk factors are people who have HIV. So if you are a person who has HIV, try by all means to avoid being in contact with people who have TB, and try by all means to just protect yourself. Whether you are when you're going out, try to wear a mask all the time, just to prevent yourself from getting some of these infections, because people who have HIV are at higher risk of getting opportunistic infections from the environment, whether it's TB or any other conditions. Then people who are also at risk are those who have who abuse drugs, especially people who abuse IV medications. So if you are a drug abuser, you are at a high risk of having tuberculosis. People who also have diabetes are also at risk of having tuberculosis because they have immunosuppression. So their immune system is not very strong, and so they are not able to fight infections very well. So they are at risk of having tuberculosis as well. People who take alcohol, people who smoke are also increasing their risk of getting tuberculosis. The other risk factors are people who have cancer of the head and the neck. So if you have a cancer, whether it's in the brain or the head or in the neck, you are also at risk of having TB. You can easily get this TB from the environment. Then children as well can also get TB, and they are at high risk, especially children who are below the age of 5 years old. Their risk of getting TB is very high, and this is why people or children who are below 1 month of age are advised to get the BCG vaccine that can help to prevent them from getting this TB. And so if you have a baby, or if you are pregnant and planning to have a baby, make sure that your child gets the BCG vaccine so that they can be protected from getting this TB before the age of 5. So we want our children to be safe, because people or children who are below the age of 5 are at higher risk of having or contacting this TB from the environment. So these are some of the risk factors of people that can easily get TB. And so if you have any of these risk factors, make sure that you check yourself and try to eliminate some of them that you can. So if you are diabetic, make sure you are taking your medications and adhering to your medications to be able to control the diabetes that you have, so that your immune system is boosted. And if you are HIV positive and you're on medication, try as much as possible to adhere to the medications so that you can improve your CD4 count and improve your immune system. People who take alcohol and smoking, make sure that you try to stop smoking, because that will increase your chances of getting TB. So I do hope you have learned something today. Today we're talking about some of the risk factors of TB, and we say that people who live in overcrowded places, or people who are staying with somebody who has TB, are at high risk of contacting this TB from the people that they are staying with. With people who are HIV positive or who have diabetes can also get this TB very easily because of the immunosuppression. Then people who take alcohol, abuse drugs, and who smoke are also at risk of having this infection. Then children below the age of 5 can also get into this infection because of their reduced immune system. So make sure you watch again tomorrow when we'll be talking about the signs and symptoms. We want you to know exactly how you can be able to tell that you are having TB. And if you missed any other episodes on the Health Corner here on the Breakfast Show, you can also catch up on my YouTube channel, which is Dr. Nakubena Mfaya Siameka on YouTube. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and stay blessed.
quite interesting. That was the doctor just giving us some more insight into tuberculosis. That was a topic that she began yesterday, and like we advised you, just keep staying tuned in for the rest of the week and hear the different tips that the doctor has. And remember, this is not a diagnosis. Please visit your health facility to get a proper diagnosis. This is just an idea to let you know some of the signs and symptoms. Just now take a look at how the kwacha is faring against major international convertibles on the money market. So we have the Great British Pound buying at 24 kwacha 29 way, selling at 24 kwacha 77 way. The United States dollar buying at 19 kwacha 61 way and selling at 20 kwacha. The euro buying at 20 kwacha 95 way, selling at 21 kwacha 37 way. The South African rand buying at 1 kwacha 02 way and selling at 1 kwacha 04 way. And also yesterday we even said that there's only 10 way remaining.
Exactly.
For 20 kwacha, and it seems in the night when we're sleeping, someone threw in that 10 way.
That 10 way, and then I'm like, okay.
And it's now 20 kwacha on the selling part.
Yeah, and what should be actually noted is that these rates, they vary from bank to bank, and despite that, the fact still remains that we're at 20 kwacha, and this will obviously trickle down to that person at a personal level, at a household level, at a community level, and how they tend to actually navigate through. I don't know what your take would be in as far as the kwacha surging, because we've seen some instabilities a couple of weeks.
Definitely, and just to hope. I remember in 2022 there were some predictions, saying by December to reach 10 kwacha, but I don't know if we're ever going to go back there. But keep our hopes high. Hopefully, you.
But do those predictions work?
They don't work. But it was on 17 kwacha, I think, somewhere there or thereabout. But then after that, it went back. It even reached 15 kwacha, if you remember.
Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. Anyway, just now, Nelson, we take a look at some of the stories that made headlines in yesterday's news on the community desk. And so we have a story on alcohol, Nelson, where some residents of Lusaka were reacting to the statement by Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, who said last week, who gave a 7-day ultimatum for illegal liquor sellers to comply, failure to which the things will be confiscated. And so some residents of Lusaka were of the view that the ban on the illegal sale of alcohol, such as in residential areas, will help in reducing community crimes that come as a result of alcohol abuse. Some of the residents in Kabanana compound stated that the mushrooming of bars in undesignated places has resulted in alcohol abuse, which often results in illicit activities and unwanted pregnancies. So and we also talked to Serenity Harm Zambia Executive Director, Mr. Philip Champonda, who said, we have seen an increase in the number of GBV cases in homes, and so this is one of the reasons, illegal bars also contribute to noise pollution, they increase junkies and all that. So I think everyone seems to be on the same page. In fact, the NGO was saying, the move is long overdue. Definitely. So let's just take a look at that story. The mushrooming of bars in undesignated areas in Zambia, as well as the vending of alcohol, has continued to be a thorn for more citizens and has been cited as one of the major reasons for many school-going children dropping out, increased crime in communities, and the rise in teenage pregnancies. The Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, in a recent communique, gave a 7-day ultimatum for compliance, urging local authorities to close in on those engaging in the illegal sale of alcohol. With the lapse of the 7-day ultimatum coming closer on 7th June 2023, some Lusaka residents have called on the local authorities not to hesitate, but to move in and curb the vice, stating that it has become a nuisance.
Bakumwa chabe bakole wadeni bakazi dabo chabati batenga mamimba solo mwana wa skulu olo bana ba skulu sibapunzira bwino benangu banyamuka pa manyumba twaenda ku skulu aenda chini mweko first tumoba paji aenda mu class bachicho apunzisa achita chabe behavior inangu kansi nishamu so yeve chabe bwino bangasebenzere shiba chitabwino Bana ngachoka va uniform akamba tenda school but apezeka majunta ya mina. Sometimes enda class no kwale wando atenda punzia ndo cha confuse wanzake chifa cha kola kwakaenda mbana na wa teacher. So yo baramo wa mabama komboni it's no mugava basi finika mkomboni ifika zingana ma place ya mabacha bega hika. Noti bali pakati pa manyumba. Bazimayo kanga kupyanga kusie ni madiziano ni mmoja.
Meanwhile, Serenity Harm Reduction Program Zambia Executive Clinical Director Philip Chimponde knows that the illegal sale of alcohol has also contributed to noise pollution, gender-based violence cases in homes, and underage drinking.
So in Zambia, alcohol is sold like sweets everywhere. And this is the reason why it has to be regulated. And this time is the right time for the government to take up the baton and make sure that sanity is restored in our community. If you look at what this has brought about, we've seen that actually, first of all, as I mentioned, selling this alcohol in undesignated places is always an offense. And if you are found, you can be arrested, prosecuted, pay a fine, or you can face imprisonment. That's the first thing. And also, vendors make alcohol readily available for consumption without taking into consideration the regulation. For example, we know that if you are selling alcohol, there is the opening and closing. But when you are a vendor, you don't open and you don't close. It's always available. As long as people have the money and they are willing to purchase, you always be there.
Upon the lapse of the ultimatum, all those selling alcohol in residential areas, bus stations, markets, and on the streets are expected to be stopped. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Quite an interesting story there coming through from one of our staffer, Zipporah Mshala, just trying to give insight on what really goes on in the communities with regards to alcohol and the pertaining directive that was given by the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development with regards to the illicit sale of alcohol. And we get just to understand, how was it Zipporah covering this story and bringing the much needed insight to the people in terms of what is on the ground?
I think there was a consensus on the ground, where everybody says, everybody was for the idea, except I talked to some few youths who didn't even want to be on camera, they refused to talk. They're like, no, this thing helps us relax, you know what I mean? But anyway, it has to be in the correct designated place. And one of the things that the executive director there from Serenity Harm brought up is that, these places do not have, they don't follow opening and closing hours. They are designated bars or the vending of alcohol. Yes. There's no closing time, it's always there. Yes. Anyone can access it anytime. I think that was a good observation there. Yeah, it's like a free space where you're at liberty to do anything that you would want at a particular time, regardless of the law that exists. You'd rather disregard it with impunity and like following it. So I think that's quite an interesting story. We look at how it's going to unfold in terms of the people heeding to the directive that was given by the Honorable Minister. But moving forward, we zoom in another story that is coming through from Kabanana, where Secretary of University of Zambia has narrated to Camnet TV how he was forced to withdraw from university after the Lusaka City Council LCC failed to pay his family his late father's terminal benefits. In an interview, Boyd Mwape says his father died in 2020 and that ever since, his family has been pushing to have his late father's benefits paid to the family, but the local authority keeps giving excuses that it only has resources to pay salaries for the serving workers. Quite a sad narrative. When I was watching TV or listening to the news, like, wow, we still have such issues in this era. Yes, and the thing again which is tied to that is that yesterday we saw one of the people who were protesting at Lusaka City Council last week arrested. So an incident that was confirmed by the police.
Exactly, and I was asking a question now. Is it that intimidation if you provide a service to LCC and then at the end of the day you're not benefiting from it? How do you put food on the table? Because you might find yourself as the pillar of the family and then there's nothing in your coffers.
Like some of the people were there last week, Nelson, they were saying, I'm from home, my property is outside, I've been locked out, and my children are hungry. And then I'm supposed to clock in every morning and work as if everything is well. Imagine, can you even work properly like that?
Well, what are your thoughts let's get to zoom in that story and we'll be right back.
The blazing sound of welding machines is what this young man of Lusaka's Kabanana area has now been exposed to instead of the thunk sound from a computer. Boyd Mwape, not his real name, is a dropout second-year student from the University of Zambia who was pursuing a bachelor's in computer science but was forced to quit school following the death of his father in 2020. According to Mr. Mwape, his father was a general worker at the Lusaka City Council under the Housing Department where he served for 28 years, but that following his death, the family has been trying to claim his father's benefits, but that all efforts have failed, which has contributed to him dropping out of school.
Admitted to UNZA to study computer science under extension studies. And I was doing computer science. So 2020 my dad passed on. He was working under the Lusaka City Council in the Housing Department, general worker. He had worked for 28 years, but since he died, we have been pushing for the terminal benefits. And up to now, we haven't received any. It's now 3 years.
He has since pleaded with the Minister of Local Government, Garin Kombo, to also consider paying benefits to those whose family members have passed on through the resources that he is asking from the Secretary to Cabinet.
I could not afford tuition, and there was no one to pay for me, so I had to find other means of surviving and also supporting my family. Hence, I started doing metal fabrication and carpentry, which is also not enough to support my family because business is hard now. Finding a customer is difficult, so we are pleading with the Lusaka City Council to consider us, paying us terminal benefits. Mom was doing a small business, but now she closed because she could not keep up with the bills, and here myself supporting her.
The announcement by the President, Hakainde Hichilema, that government has paid terminal benefits to all retirees and those who were owed by government has also contributed to making life difficult for this young man.
As administrator, the President announced to say the government is paying off all retirees, and my family thought I had gotten a share of my dad's terminal benefits from because of the announcement that was made. So they started inciting that they should take me to court because they thought I was hiding money from dad's terminal benefits.
His story is just among the few captured from many families who are suffering due to failure by the local authority to remit the NAPSA contributions of most of its workers. For this family, their hope now lies in the relevant authorities, such as the Minister of Local Government, who should compel the local authority to pay the benefits to families of employees who have passed on and those who have retired. Prudence Jota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
So that was zooming the headlines of yesterday, those that made headlines on the community desk. And just now we transition to our interview where we're joined by the Keepers Zambia Foundation Executive Director, Mr. Ezra Banda, who's going to help us discuss issues pertaining to climate change. And just now we have officially opened our phone lines, so do call in and on the numbers that are showing on your screen, or leave us a message on Facebook as you participate in today's topic. As you are aware, climate change has become more than just a topic from other countries. We have seen it closer to home. Just in the past rain season, we saw floods, we've experienced droughts, and even now people are complaining, about the output of their farming, of this year's farming season, all because of climate change. Some people have lost crops, many people are suffering hunger in many areas. So what do you think about climate change? Are we doing enough to fight climate change as a country? Are you, as a person at community level, doing enough to fight climate change? Good morning, Mr. Banda.
Good morning, Isbora. Good morning, Nelson.
Good morning.
Good morning, viewers.
Maybe just can you tell us about Keepers Zambia Foundation? What is it about? When was it formed? And all that.
Okay, thank you very much. Keepers Zambia Foundation is a local NGO which was formed in 1996, especially on 29th January. Its main focus is to work with the people in the rural areas to improve livelihood of the marginalized people. As you all may appreciate, that rural people are deprived from a lot of services, including, as you have said, employment, communication, contacts, and all several items, all several facilities which are needed for human beings. So they are very much deprived. One, their information poverty, there's a gap of communication. So we did realize as KZF to say, let us focus on the peri and the rural population in terms of interventions. But our main focus really is to work with the people through the management, through sustainable utilization of natural resources. As you may understand, all our lives are derived from natural resources. So our main focus is how do we ensure that as we utilize these resources, we are not depleting them for today, for the future. So I think this is our main focus in terms of the way we work with the people. We want to see a socially and economically secured Zambian community.
Quite interesting, and I think yesterday we were commemorating World Environmental Day, and I think in fact this whole week, are you part of the celebrations?
Yeah, we are.
Are you doing any activities in relation to that?
We are participating. Actually, KZF is also a very active actor in environment and climate change. I think yesterday we did release as an institution a press statement, which some media houses did pick it up. And we are very clear on the issues of climate. I think, allow me maybe to simply, there are a lot of definitions of environment, but allow me to mention this one in brief, that you see, environment is defined as the sum total of living and non-living organisms which have the impact on the livelihood of human beings. So you see, so we are already talking about living and non-living. Okay. So I think in that definition you can see that, which means we need to make sure that we balance it up. Okay. Don't worry about this is a non-living thing, so I can throw it. Okay. This one is, because it says it's a sum total. So it takes into context the issues of plastics, it takes into context the dead wood, it takes into context water, it takes into context stones, soils, you as human beings, trees and everything. So all these things are summed up together. And now, if these things are not properly managed, okay, we are saying it's a sum total. So you can see that it has got a structure and it is holding all of us. Then at the same time, if something is holding you, then you have to make sure that you don't disturb with its structures. Because if you disturb, like here now we are sitting in this building, we know it has got a foundation, firm foundation, a concrete which was done. So if somebody, as we are sitting here, Spora, somebody now is digging down it, we expect it to fall. So this is exactly what is happening with the environment. We have tampered with it. We have choked it. You know, we are burning all over. We are throwing a litter all over. So how do we expect it to live? See? So that's why us as KZF, we are very firm. We are working with different categories. Like currently, we are working in Western Province with people in need, as well as Czech University, to try and see how can we promote clean cooking energy to the people through the promotion of biogas. The idea is, can we start buying from a certain angle to ensure that we try to remove people, you know, from the heavy usage of forestry stuff. You know, as you can see, according to our statistics, that annually Zambia loses between 187,000 hectares to about 200 annually. Okay, so this should be a threat to us, because again, this is within the environment. So we are tampering with the platform. So we have such program there. Then we have another program in Chongwe and Rufunsa with support from working in collaboration with HIVOS and the other VC Alliance, where we are saying, can the rural people now become defenders of the environment? because I think they are feeling it. They are feeling the heat. As you have already said, these floods are coming in handy. You know, one time now we should end up seeing even mountains being, submerged. You know, as the case is, in Southern Province, we had a situation where within the course of the week, some districts were able to receive the maximum requirement of their lands which they needed per season. And that's why we saw all those. So, so these are some of the issues. But again, we have gone a step further to say, now, can we also maybe bring in the children in these environment issues? So that as they are growing, they should start appreciating. They should not be taken at a certain level, but they should start appreciating that environment is very vital. Environment is where their lives is. So we are implementing again this program together with Save the Children International in Southern Province. We are in Sinazongwe, we are in Choma. In Western Province, we are in Kayema. So basically, we are trying to become very holistic in terms of approaching the issues of environment. But I think, all said, the major thing is, I'm happy yesterday, coincidentally, we also issued a statement, but the minister was precisely on the same, Minister of Environment and Green Economy and Environment. I think he did allude to the fact that they are reviewing the EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, because I think it has been there. SAI was issued in 2018, but in terms of compliance by the people, the producers, it's not seen. Because I think it is well detailed that they should take responsibility of their product up to the end. So what does that mean, Nelson? It means that if I'm producing plastics, I need to follow the supply chain or the distribution chain of that plastic up to its end life so that it is properly disposed of. But this is what many of them are not doing. And you would agree with me that in shops, we are even paying some money. That money is not meant to sit in the shop. It's meant to contribute to ensure that the producer follows that line of distribution up to the disposal point. So I'm very happy that the minister did allude to that, and we hope, because in Zambia, having a good piece of legislation in place is another, implementation is another. So I think we want to see if it can be followed to the latter, to ensure that the people who are producing these products, they follow them up to the end. So I think these are some of the issues which we are looking at as KZF, and we are saying with other actors in the sector, we need to make sure that we advocate, we voice it out, so that the people can understand, so that we start demanding a lot of stuff around there.
You spoke about the extended producer responsibility that exists to ensure that producers of plastics, they follow the supply chain. But for some time, there's been a gap in terms of these producers following up in terms of the plastic manufacturing. Where do we have a loophole in terms of all these issues happening?
I think basically, I believe from our understanding, it's the compliance levels from institutions like ZEMA. Okay? Because when you have an act in place, then I think you need to put in some systems which should be able to respond and support the act. The act itself might just be sitting there. Okay? Because I think now we are all Zambians, and we are sitting in Zambia. And ZEMA are also part of the stock of Zambian people. So they should understand that where is the problem. So if there is a problem, I think the ministry is available to put an SI to reinforce such. So I think it is a question of, are we able to reinforce? Another part. Do consumers know that when they walk into the shop, they are paying a 1 kwacha or 1 kwacha 50 for a plastic? Do they understand why are they paying? Because previously we were not paying. But the issue of paying is that there is an understanding that they will change the standard of that plastic so that it's biodegradable, so that they add the value to that, to a certain measure, which the minister mentioned yesterday. But do we understand as citizens? Okay. Another part is, it's not only from that angle. Even us as citizens, do we take responsibility when it comes to disposing such? So I think there are a lot of factors which at play. Yeah. But one thing is there anybody who can be punished in this system? So I think the Act now, because it's under review, it should be able to address that. Yeah, it should be able to address that. Are we able to trace, or are we able at what we need to classify the categories and make sure that we put actors at every point so that the law is enforced. And we should see the change going on. Yeah.
Quite interesting there. We are discussing climate change. Can you relate at climate change at local level? And so just now take a look at a story that was done by Patrick Soko on the harm that plastics are doing to our community, and keep engaged in the conversation.
Plastic pollution remains a big problem, negatively affecting the country, and Lusaka is not spared from the vice. One of the ways of reducing plastic pollution is through the 3R concept of reducing, reusing, and recycling that helps in reducing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and save the environment. And here is the Chunga dump site that has been a subject to poor waste management in the Zambian waste management discourse, and this is where most of the waste pickers are found. The waste pickers continue to complain of lack of protective equipment for safety purposes, and most of all, poor pricing given the huge time and effort they invest in picking plastic materials.
Sometimes when
with the help of the Zambia Environmental Management Agency, ZEMA, we had an opportunity to visit a waste recycling company owned by a Chinese investor who are buying plastic materials. Mishek Simanza is Jingho, company operations manager.
The waste, specifically plastic waste, and ensure that it is value is added to that plastic waste. How do we add value? We ensure that it is sorted according to the kind of plastic that we are looking for, and then it is crushed, and then it is packaged. On one front, it is packaged for onward provision to companies that make different finished plastic products out of recycled material. So we fit in very well in the 3 R's. We try as much as possible to ensure that there's reduction of waste that goes first of all to the landfill, and that also clogs the drainages that would otherwise provide parasites for disease.
Lack of proper regulation and coordination in the waste recycling industry is a problem he acknowledged as a contributing factor to poor pricing.
Do not get a reasonably fair price. Why is that so? That is because there are different value chain players in the circular economy or the recycling industry. The first beneficiaries are the industries that manufacture products out of the recycled materials. And so I believe the engagement of the people that do the manufacturing would play a good role in ensuring that the prices for the materials goes up.
We spoke to the Zambia Environmental Management Agency, ZEMA Acting Operations Manager, Webi Simwai.
Before we can even think of reducing, the best thing that we're supposed to do is to prevent. Let's prevent as much waste generation as possible. And if we can't do that, that's now when we come to the first R, which is reduction. Let's not go and pick 50 plastic bag from ShopRite when you just need to use 2. Let's reduce the amount of waste that we are putting in the environment. And then let's reuse. This is why we have seen we have now regulating the thickness of the plastic. It's because we want no single use of plastic. We want, if I buy this plastic, I can use it as many times as possible, because the thickness is something that is durable. And the thickness helps when it comes to recycling such plastic, as opposed to those very thin plastics. When you subject them to thermal, they actually not very good recyclable materials.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News.
So that was a story that done by Patrick Soko dealing with plastic pollution. And maybe Mr. Banda, you know, when people hear about climate change, they don't really see in what way it affects them. Someone will be like, "Majama plastic hai kuchunga, what do they have to do with me?" You know, when you talk about climate change, many people are always so detached But maybe just can you tell us some of the negatives that we're going to experience as a country due to climate change? For example, of course, we have floods, we have droughts, and all that. So maybe how can someone out there, get that responsibility? What should they think about to get that responsibility to make sure that they do their part in getting rid of that plastic, or avoiding contributing to climate change in other ways?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much. I think as I earlier on said, that people have to understand that climate change, is as a result mostly of our human action. So when you look at the way we manage the environment in which we live, it's like you are investing. So if you invest in 1 kwacha, you understand the returns of that. So even as citizens, if we mismanage the waste, we dump them everywhere, the process of those things, like both the plastic does not really, this just normal ordinary plastic can never, just maybe using a simple term, cannot load and whatever. It will still remain there for years. So the impact there is that the process of not disposing these wastes in an appropriate way, in a safe way, contribute to, carbon emission. Okay? As I've said, that when you talk about the environment, so this carbon emission has got the consequences. Because, in those, our friends who have done too much sciences, you have ozone layer and other stuff. So this huge emission has got a certain impact in terms of the ozone layer. It impacts seriously because of these emissions which are going out there. So we are saying, can we start managing this? One, I think you have seen that it's not by mistake that you have seen that the temperatures are high. Okay, the air we breathe is is polluted. People have got too much ailments these days. Tomorrow you have flu, the other day you have cough. All these calamities, all this increase of these incidences, they're as a result of how we are managing ourselves in terms of things which are not incompatible with which they cannot contribute to the ecosystem, the environmental ecosystem. So we have unbalanced, ecosystems because of our actions. Even, as I've said, when we're talking about losing hectares of land, we are losing them to what? We are losing them to charcoal. We are losing them to agriculture. Okay? Partly firewood, but mostly you're talking about charcoal. So if we are losing such hectares, the land is becoming empty. So what measures do we need to do as a country? I think that is very important. We have to look at what do we do. We know that there are good pronunciations out there, okay, which at times when I see it, I tend to laugh, because they are good, perfect. But the doability there is quite, questionable. Because if you say, I've heard this pronunciation that maybe we want to go to zero charcoal. Is it true?
Is it possible?
Is it possible to go zero charcoal? Because I want to tell you that in the charcoal industry, there are 3 actors. There's a producer, there's a vendor, and there's a consumer. So are you going to surely eliminate all these 3 actors to become zero charcoal? The idea is very good, but let us be very realistic in our planning. If we are at 100 now, there's no way you can drop from 100 to 0. Okay? You need to make sure that you put in strategies which should respond, should be replacing that. Because other people, charcoal is the railroad. If you walk now to Baulen here, our nearest place, you find how much charcoal is displayed as a commodity, which is giving revenue to the people. So are you going to remove those households in there from what they are doing now to 0? The answer is no. Okay? First, we have to look at it. What is it that we're going to put in place to replace that? That's why this sector needs a lot of investment. It's not a sector which you cross through and say, we are going to go to 0. You need a lot of investment. You have to look at this mom in Bahrain who is selling charcoal. what alternative livelihood are you giving to that person? To abandon charcoal, okay?
What alternatives, in your view, do you think should be given to?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As a government, we should make sure, because this is about the growth, the livelihood of a person. He sends a child to school using the same charcoal, okay? Yeah. So look at the employment levels in Zambia. So we need to be tackling it from it's a multi-sector approach. You need to tackle it from a different angle. You cannot just walk in and say today we are stopping charcoal. Okay. One, we have to make sure that the alternative, alternative fuels or technologies are variable and affordable and accessible. Obviously, because these is the 3 A's. 3 A's have to be included when you are trying to approach something. Yeah, you cannot just walk there. So we have to make sure, because look at the way charcoal is. I'm not saying charcoal is good, okay? But I'm saying that we cannot bring it to 0. We should moderate it. If it is 100, can we bring it to 75? Because 75 would have started saving some trees. Okay? Then so we bring it to 50. We says, but as we are doing that, we should be matching what is it that is replacing charcoal as a cooking energy. You see? So these are some of the issues we are doing. So the policies are there, quite all right. But again, when we come to agriculture, because of the high cost of inputs, okay, some people are doing some shift type of cultivation where I'm not an agriculturist, so please, people who are in agriculture should bear with me. I think in some areas you find people, use potash, okay, because where you burn, then you grow, you find you have good harvest. But again, in a very shortest period, because you are not managing your land properly, you want to again extend to another land. So what we need, obviously, so even from an agriculture point of view, we need to go into smart climate type of agriculture, where we maximize the small land, but making sure the new some technologies we should enrich the soils continuous. So in that area, again, in agriculture, we need to look at it. In the energy sector, we need to look at it. In the economy sector, we need to look at it. So you cannot tackle it from just Minister of Green Economy and Environment. No. You tackle it from energy sector, okay? You tackle it from agriculture. You tackle it from commerce and trade as well. Because people need to be trading. People need to be active in the economic sphere. But how do we do? So we need to trigger it. So how does the government trigger that? That's a big issue which I think we have think tank all over. We have lectures in universities, high learning institutes. We have directors, we have learned people in the ministries. So we need to be holistic. Not just to let the minister to say, no, we are going to cut the charcoal because it contributed to climate change. We're going to do. But at the same time, this information should not end just here in Lusaka. That's why some of us, like Keeper Zambia Foundation, we want to reach out to the people in the marginalized areas because they have got information gap. They have to understand. They have to understand. So when we started from there, we grow it there. Nelson, you asked me a good question that what type of innovation can you do? You see, Zambia is highly urbanized because of the issues of lack of employment. And to me, I believe that there's one sector which can reverse this, and that sector is agriculture. The reason why I say agriculture, well-managed agriculture, which does not continue tampering with the forest and natural resource. A well-managed agriculture, because why am I saying agriculture can be a driving system for the country like Zambia, is that agriculture can absorb both skilled and unskilled labor. It has no limitation. Its absorption rate is quite inelastic. Yeah. So because the people are coming out from the village to town to earn their living, but at the same time there's no alternative, then they fall into the issues of charcoal and these other things. So can we start looking away? We are not thinking of treating this problem tomorrow, but we need to start, okay? Than leaving it open like that.
For some time, according to the evaluations that have been looked at in terms of the efforts that are being made to fight climate change in the country, you find that most of the time, we focus much on mitigation rather than adaptation. As KZF, how are you positioning yourself in terms of reaching out to the community to ensure that they understand the issues relating to adaptation unlike mitigation?
Thank you very much for that observation. As Keeper Zambia Foundation, I think we really agree with you that being reactive is costly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the government doesn't have such amount of money or such resources to be reacting. No wonder people are complaining out there. So I think ourselves, the way we are positioning ourselves is really to try and work with the people at the point of action. It can just be, you can only achieve something if the people, the actors that realize that this is wrong and they accept that they need to embark on something to change. You know, because to be adaptive, for an example, what we mean by that word be adaptive is to try and withstand. Okay? Because the calamities will be with us. But you should be positioning yourself in a way that you are able to withstand in case of a shock. But how do you stand? You need information.
Mm-hmm.
Especially our friends in the rural areas, they need information, adequate information. We need improved service delivery by the government so that we reach out all the places which are hard to reach. Because you cannot become adaptive if you don't have any information. You can't. I need to know precisely from May that this year the rains will only last for 30 days. Then I need to know from agriculture what type of a crop can grow in 30 days. You see? I need to know from Zambia's River Authority when is the river going to burst, so that if I stay along the system, I should move out. I need to understand the water levels where I stay, so that if I'm going to do a borehole, I go to specialized people. They tell me for your borehole to last the year, even in dry season, you need X meters. You see, so it's a question of, do we have this information? Okay? And at the same time, when you talk about, it's a very good time. I wish next time again you call me on this. Because when you're talking about adaptation, it comes back into the way of your planning. You need to plan with climate change in your head, so it becomes adaptive. Even the buildings, when you see people, their houses are flooded, please, it should not be mistaken. When you see their houses are flooded, there was a lack of information. Because they didn't understand that one day, rains will hit. Okay? Even our bridges, which is the bridges collapsed. Oh, was it adaptive? Is this bridge adaptive? In other language, you say, is it all season thing you are putting across? If a house, after just one storm, it is gone, is it adaptive? Because when you look at our friends in the other areas, in the Western world, they have those skyscrapers. But have we heard any of that having collapsed? Maybe very few of them in some areas. But they withstand, and they have heavy storms. It's because their system of developing was based on adaptation. So adaptation is a very good term, which everybody wants to adopt, to embrace.
Now, Mr. Banda, I would like to bring you to the other question.
Yeah.
You spoke about the need to have investment in the country in terms of fighting climate change. But you find that we have laws such as the carbon tax that allows people to pay for the emissions that own vehicles. We've got treaties such as that of the Paris Agreement, where we see those industrialized countries paying to our countries to ensure that they take account for that emission. Do we still need more investment even with more money coming through?
The answer could be like a political and say yes or no. Yeah. Yes, in that I think when you look at, when you do the sum total of the damage which has been done to the environment, I think even our debt, the national debt we're having, cannot manage to reverse it. You see, when you look at the population pattern, the way they are, the distribution of national energy, when you look at the hydro, it's not reaching everywhere to trigger the usage of alternative green energy. You know, its limitations. When you look at the solar, it has also limitations. The solar has limitations. Yeah, we talk about solar, but yeah, we have enough right, but it has limitations in terms of cooking. Okay, if it means cooking, the investment is high. So when you talk about the biogas, which we are talking about, of course, again, it has limitations because we have to look at people who have got animals to support and other technology around that. So what I would say is that, yes, we still need support, we still need a lot of investment. But another thing is, the little which come in, are we using it prudently? That's maybe why I can look at you that are we using, was if we are unable to manage the little we are receiving, then even whatever amount will come into the country, it will be difficult to manage it. So we need to show the zeal of how can we manage the local resources. As we have talked. We have got carbon tax. It goes control 99, I think. Yes. One time I worked in the government. Yeah, I worked in the government because I thought that money should go directly towards the carbon issue. Yeah. So that as a country, when we think outside the box, as a country, we should be also a buyer of the carbon and resell maybe to avoid exploitation. Because now we are inviting the investors to come and be uptakers of the carbon and sell, and then they bring the returns. And usually these transactions are not as transparent as they might be. But I am aware that the Ministry of Green Economy and the Environment, they were recently they released the guide on the carbon trade. Yeah. So as I said, a piece of paper might be good, but the issues of the implementation. So in both angles, we need a lot of investment to reverse the damage. Okay? The damage is quite huge in terms of the climate. As I've told you, that you cannot, it is not one sector approach. Okay? It's not one sector approach. You are looking at the Minister of Agriculture itself, because of the famine. You are looking at the Minister of Energy itself, because of the damage caused through the issues of coal and other stuff. You are again looking at the Ministry of, this time maybe we could try to go to medium and small enterprise. So all those, they need financing, okay, in each category. Because if, we needed to have CEC rolling out a program which they are rolling out now, to make sure that these people in peri-urban areas are well financed, to embark into other alternative businesses unlike charcoal. Now, you are talking about people, and you need these monies in form of semi-grants, okay, to trigger growth for these people to stop what they are doing. So, in short, Mr. Zulu, is that whether our own or the out financing need to come in. But I think the challenge, which is really, they are discussing a lot under COP. They will discuss about climate finance. Yes. But another challenge which is there is that after those pronunciations, we are allocating such billions of dollars to this and this. Then they go in the background, because these are countries, also individual countries who are making pledges. But they sit down, some of them say, no, I think you can also, this money, even if it was mentioned, it should go in form of credit and not grant.
In the interest of time, I would like you to be very categorical and be quick on this issue. You talk about carbon trade. Some scholars have debated that this has got a lot of disadvantages rather than advantages. As Zambia, do you have the capacity to really involve ourselves in carbon trade?
Now, it's a very tricky industry. I'll tell you that Keepers Zambia Foundation in between 2009 and 2010, we almost wanted to embark on that because we had a huge project which we were looking at natural resource management. So it's not a sector which anybody can walk in and think he can manage it. Indeed, as they are saying, even myself I support, it's a very tricky industry. Because I think you have to look at it, are you going to do it from natural resource management arrangement? Or, so there are a lot of variables and the sections which you have to look at. So it's not an easy industry. Maybe that's why, as a country, we would always maybe ask for the investors from outside who are doing that to come in and do it for us. So, but at the end of the day, because what we have to understand is that the way this thing works is that Mr. Zuru will say, okay, I declare X number of hectares. Okay? I will be managing it, and no any other mismanagement will go into there. Maybe I will just concentrate in harvesting this non-wood timber products, okay, from this forest. Then the other person who is an expert, I know we have some experts at Copperbelt University. I have my colleagues, I don't want to mention them, but they are trying to push for that. But so they will come in and say, okay, according to these hectares, we calculate this, okay, the output of your CO2, what. So it's not an easy industry per se. But I think what we need to do, as you said, do we have the capacity? You see, we are human beings like those others. So if those others were able to gain that capacity and skills, I think the government also can sponsor these intellectuals we are having in higher learning institutions as experts in trying to regulate and trying to make sure that they manage the carbon credit.
Now we do have the Constituency Development Fund, which was actually increased from last year's 25.7 million to 28.3 million, and we've been hearing the UPND expressing interest. Take it to 57 million. Are we seeing any activities that respond to climate change at community level using this fund, or what picture would you like to see? Okay,
I think basically when I was reading that, unless maybe, because maybe I grossed through, I do remember that under Constituency Development Fund, there is a 5%, which is for disaster. Yes. Yeah, from community. But again, as Bora and Nelson, I will indicate to you that what kills us is information.
So is it that?
Yeah. So what we need is that, the government is decentralizing. And this is a process of decentralization. Okay, because you are pushing the resources to the people so that the people make decisions. Okay. And that's why at one point I think I was so vocal. I saw that maybe I was speaking from the background, but I thank Spora and Nelson for bringing me here, because I have been very vocal in terms of looking at the guidelines which were cumbersome. So thanks to the power that be, that they have tried to work on them. But at one point, I think they need to work on them to the level, okay, of the understanding of the very lowest of the lowest. You see, I've said that technicians in offices, they should not be developing these documents as if they're in competition with the people on the ground. Okay? So already, that fund is there. So you find that at times, people, because of lack of information, because in the community, like a community project, 60% of that allocation talks about community development projects. But you find the president takes the president to go and explain this in Chongwe, that you people, why are you asking water from central government? When I've pushed this money to you, what you need to ask from me is, can you increase this allocation? Because, the president is trying to decentralize or to devour the powers down to the ground so that Zipporah and Nelson are able to make decision on what they need and which is applicable in their environment. You cannot take development so generic, okay? That because this happened in Shangombo, this happened in this. Even the climate issues which we want to tackle ourselves, you might find that we go to Sioma, it's not about floods, it's about drought. Okay? You go to other places, it's about storm. So you can even see that the terrain is not the same. So even this idea of CDF, I think is well intended, but information gap. Okay? People have just, even when you go somewhere, they'll tell you, in our local language, they'll tell you that, it's in Ndarama Zavaja, meaning this is not our money, it's for some other people. Because, there is, in that component, there is a component of grant, there's a component of our own. Very little interest there, okay? So to me, you find how many people are accessing that, okay? You find even the committee where you're putting the WDC's committees, you know, they are not adequate to disseminate that information so that each and everybody receives that. There is no barrier in accessing, but the barrier is information.
Are we provoking people's thoughts enough, like maybe on the consequences of climate change? I mean, we've seen so many cooperatives, but we've never seen a cooperative that aimed at combating climate. People are, climate change. There's chickens, you know, there's goats, and all those things.
All
But
focusing on business.
are people aware on, you know, how climate change affects them?
People are very much slowly becoming aware, but in the past they wanted to associate climate change like natural calamity, okay? But now the occurrences, you know, the frequencies at which these things are happening, some of them are now trying to be aware. But again, I think it is very important because the government has got extension systems, especially through Ministry of Agriculture, which is quite very visible in some of these corners dotted around the country. They need to make sure that the people need to start understanding, because as you are saying, even when you are doing pottery, the disposal of that stuff, the droppings from the chickens and things, they need to be managed properly. Okay? Even when you are storing, I know, Mr. Zulu, you have a guardian behind. When you get that chemical, whatever chemical you want to go and spray, you don't just burn it. You need to dispose of it in a normal way because you want to make sure that you don't pollute the environment. So it's a question of how I wish that okay, I know that the curriculum was when I was in Choma recently. I know that in the curriculum they are building up in the civics, mini civics and other stuff. I think there's the program there where now the children are starting to know because it's snowing. So you know, in whatever we're going to do, we'll go round and round. The bottom line is the adequacy of the information.
So are you for the idea that maybe they should be introduced from a young age?
Yes. People need to learn from, they need to grow with it. So, you see, sorry, I'm not maybe diverting the issue. The challenge we're having in Zambia is that our curriculum is not responding to Zambia. You know, people study to pass and not to know.
And to get jobs in offices.
Yes, yeah.
That is true.
So that's the thing. So you find a child, you know, he wants to be a doctor, but he's given 8 subjects, including history and local language. He doesn't want to be a journalist or be an announcer in local language, but he has a local language there. Local language is already there. By nature of me being Banda, I know I can speak my local language, so why should I? Unless when I say I want to be an announcer in local language, and they say, which language do you want? Bemba, then I specialize in Bemba. So what I'm simply saying is that even our curriculum at time, it needs to be looked at so that it becomes responsive to what we are facing as a country. Yeah. What we are facing as a country, it needs to be responsible. You know, but the bottom line to me, take it or not, I think the information gap is too huge. And it's not only for, let us not say only for the people in the villages, even ourselves here, even the so-called learned, they only become interested in one thing. Okay? Yeah.
And I think we do have some messages from some of our viewers here on Facebook. And the first one, okay, not really, maybe more like statements. And the first one says, charcoal burning is our biggest problem. Then the other person says, there's a lack of environmental awareness. And the third one says, people do not see how climate change affects them. Maybe if you can just respond to some of these. So maybe the first one, if I read again, says, charcoal is our biggest problem. The second one, people do not see how climate change affects them. And the third one says, there is a lack of environmental awareness. Maybe just a response to some of our comments from our viewers.
Yeah, I think as you have said, charcoal is a major problem. No debate about it. Because it's the one which is grounding our forest. You can imagine that one is that there is no technology which has been put in to improve the process of curing charcoal. So it takes a lot of trees. You see? So again, I think my appeal is to our engineers, to our experts in the environment, in whatever, to try and bring up a technology which can improve the output of of charcoal preparation. I'm not saying charcoal is going need to be zero, but I think even the curing process is quite bad. You know, you find maybe you get maybe trees worth about 5 to 10 tons of trees to produce only 1 ton of charcoal. You see, and it takes a period for you to have a full grown-up tree. So I agree with the viewer who has indicated that charcoal is still a problem, and it will remain a problem as long as the government does not take a prudent measure to ensure that it introduces a lot of alternative cooking energy. You know, as long as it is not there, because the demand of charcoal is packaging. It's just something that makes everyone walk into it. Even myself today, if I'm fired today, you give me 5,000 to kwacha, I will go to Chongwe and say the easiest business which will come on my mind is charcoal. Because I know that when I bring it, just today it reaches my home. The people know that Mr. Banda's home has got charcoal. I won't even go in that compound to start announcing. Despite this availability, so what I'll do, I'll just pack. I'll know Spora will need 5 kgs, I pack, or Zuru will need 6 kgs, I pack, and I touch the money. So that issue of easy-friendly usability to all classes, and unfortunately it's not meant for only for those in low brackets. It's even meant for those in middle-income people, they do that. Yeah. Then in terms of the issue of information sharing, I think I've mentioned that. That I think we need to do a lot. It's true, people don't understand that what they are doing is affecting the environment they live in. That's why you find when you go at a central business district, you find people are throwing litter everywhere. Even when the collection chamber is full, they will just be throwing there because they just don't, associate themselves with the damage they are doing to the environment. And yet they want to live a better life. So when their house is flooded, they will be crying. But they don't understand that they are part and parcel who have contributed to that damage. The other one was?
Charcoal is the biggest problem. People do not see how climate change affects them. And the other one was lack of environmental awareness, I think.
Yeah, I think I've covered.
Yes, definitely. And anyway, just now we take a look at another story where we saw people from Malawi being devastated with floods in the past flooding season. So this story was done by Miriam Kaimba on climate change effects. So remember to join us in the conversation as we talk about climate change and what we can do as a country to fight this virus.
Climate change stands as a direct threat to Zambia's goal of becoming a prosperous middle-income country by 2030, as floods arising from this have continued to leave people homeless while destroying their agricultural produce, hence deepening poverty levels in the country. The country has in the recent years experienced drought and floods in selected parts of the country with major consequences such as roads and bridges being washed away, hence cutting off people from key economic activities, with some farmers failing to take their produce to various markets. Countries such as Malawi are currently in distress as the country is battling cyclone Fred, which is one of the effects of climate change, which has resulted in thousands being displaced and hundreds dying while others have been declared missing. Commenting on the prevailing situation, the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF Zambia, says urgent action is needed before chaos breaks out on the planet. WWF Chief Conservation Officer Moses Nyerenda read the speech on behalf of the country director Nachilala Nkombo during the commemoration of Earth Hour Saturday evening.
The western part of the country was devastated or has been devastated by a heat wave that lasted the whole of February. When in Lusaka we're experiencing very high rains, the western province had no rains at all. There was only 1 day of rain, and they experienced temperatures ranging from 30 to 39 degrees. So as we speak, the yields or crops in western province have been seriously compromised. That is an extreme effect of the cyclone Fred.
Meanwhile, adding his voice to the topic, WWF Board Chairperson Elias Chipemo says charcoal burning has continued to be a threat to climate change, while no permanent solution is being put in place to phase out these fires.
And I want to call each one of us to action. Not a big grand action, just something simple that you can do every single day to contribute to preserving and protecting the earth that we all live upon and that we depend on.
Speaking at the same event, Minister of Energy Director Arnold Smwamba, who read the speech on behalf of Energy Minister Peter Kapala, called on stakeholders to suggest policies aimed at enhancing the fight against climate change to the government.
As a listening government, I'm sure we all know the current government is listening to you. We, as the Minister of Energy, we are on top of things, making sure that, we give information to each and every person who is there using energy. Now, here we are. I know you have come in your own personal capacity. I know you have got friends. The good message that you have gotten from here, let's make sure that we share with our friends who have not made it to come here.
Earth Hour is commemorated every last Saturday of March from 20:30 to 21:30 with an aim of switching off all lights as a sign of commitment to the planet. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Quite an interesting story there, and it brings out, the negative effects of climate change, like we saw in the story. There were some victims of Cyclone Freddy in Malawi, and we even saw some Zambian citizens, donating. Even the president actually donated something. So maybe are we heading that way as a country if we do not do what we need to do to combat climate change? Are we going to reach a point whereby maybe, in fact, we did reach in some areas where the disaster management and mitigation unit needed to go and take some food supplies.
Mambwe, Chama district.
Yeah.
So as a country, are we heading in the direction of Malawi if we do not do what we need to do?
Definitely, I would say yes. Mm-hmm. If at the moment, looking at the effort we are putting in, it's possible that our citizens can be exposed to that type of a scenario. Because I think, as I've said, that the major challenge we are having as a country is that we don't really try to reach out to the people who might be actors in this area. You see, a lot of well-meaning NGOs, they are concentrated too much in the urban areas. Yeah. If you take stock of CSOs which can be helping this battle, you will find very few are out there. So, but again, as I've said, for us to prepare the people to become adaptive is that we need to avail adequate information so that they move in the right direction. There's a lot we can do as a country, but I think we are constrained because of our way of concentration and focus. Mm-hmm. So with that, definitely, I mean, we responded ourselves to the disaster which happened in Mazabuka, Monze, and Namara. You look at some areas when you were visiting them, when we visited them, we were just shocked that the way water was coming, you couldn't. At one point, we couldn't pull through ourselves with a land cruiser. We had just to come back. So, just lightly as Nelson indicated, we don't need to be chasing a disaster. Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to use, at times I want to use those crude words. We don't need to be chasing, but we need to be proactive. Mm. So the proactiveness is bordered on how accurate is our information. Okay? Because I'm telling you, whether you go around, whether you say this, whether you need money, you can have a lot of resources around you, but if you don't have enough information of how to apply those resources, you go back to zero. Mm-hmm. Okay? By now, we know that this environment, it changes, but there should be some predictions. Okay? By the time we reach August, there should be some predictions, accurate. That's why we have the advanced technology now. So, Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, with the Department of Met, they need now to start looking at the trends. Okay, these trends, okay, you can miss them a bit, but you won't miss them 100%.
Off the track 100%.
Yes, no, you can't. So you need to start looking at those trends as how it would be, okay? The wind, the temperatures, and everything. So that information should not just end up at Camnet here, you know? When I say Camnet, I'm not just talking about Camnet here, but I'm talking at all these media houses. We have a man in Shangom, okay, who I think there is a deliberate system of creating what we call satellite disaster management committees at community level. Those should be used as a channel to disseminate information to the members. So if you have an office at the district or wherever it might be, it should be able that when they get that information, even when the officer is sitting in his own house because he has got the privilege of having a TV, he gets that information, he can note it. Don't say, no, this is not about work today, I'm just listening from my TV. Note that. And when you note that, ensure that you have these committees around yourself. No, surprise them. Tell them, this year we shall have a short rain season, according to the prediction. No, this year, this area will be flooded. So that even the people, the idea of submerging should not be the case. People should prepare. By the time their houses are submerging, they'll find empty structures. Okay, so we would have been saving. But when you have to wait, then everything is submerged. You know, there's a lot of disturbance in terms of lives of people, right? The children go to school. They are disturbed in normal school because you relocate to another area. Health facilities are not there. Sanitation facilities are not there. So when you put all these things, you realize that that's why the reactive approach is very costly. So to myself is, let us make sure that these institutions charged with information, they should be, I think they should be following it up. Is this information reaching the people out there, or is just for Mr. Banders, Paul, and Nelson? Yeah? We have to find out. You know, you have to find out. Because if you tell the people right now, you announce, say, okay, Bauren here, we predict that we will have a heat wave in such particular time or in such a week. Then these people prepare what type of attire to use. But when the heat wave hammers them and everything dries up, then we go in to go and give them tents, go and give them water. It's expensive. So to me, in whatever angle you're going to take it, as the other viewer indicated there, the inadequacy of information on the management of environment is going to continue haunting us in whatever way. And that's why to myself, as KZF, as keepers, we want to make sure that the people in the village start talking. Maybe people can listen.
Is this the time where we need to see KZF partner with other non-governmental organizations or CSOs, as you may like to put it, to ensure that they actually bridge the information gap that is there?
In fact, we are already in some networks with a number of NGOs. We are not alone. We are there in Zambia Climate Change Network. We are there in Zambia Smart Agriculture Network. So we are in those areas. But again, I think there is also in ourselves. There is also a step, which we need to take in ourselves. We also need to clean our houses. We also need to reach out than just being called Keeper Zambia Foundation, sitting in an aircon.
So in short, there's some inadequacies.
Yes.
Where you are unable to collectively work in order to push this agenda.
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes, it is there. And I think this also comes in because maybe there is also because, an NGO, an NGO may contribute to the broader picture of the government. We cannot do everything. We just complement the effort. So it means if Mr. Nelson is contributing, is complementing, then the driver should be seen to be inclusive. See that? The driver should be seen to be inclusive in that process. So what am I saying is that if KZF is talking about environment, which sits under Minister of Green Economy and Environment, okay, we will only buy into what the government has. We cannot go outside that. We are too small, okay, to do everything which the government is supposed to do. So this is how we can network. So even as the CSOs, when we go sector by sector, we say, can we work on this? Then we need to make sure that we are buying into something to impact. Yeah. So if the government now, there's an emphasis of adaptation, okay, of improving adaptation, climate change adaptation. So we are saying, what is it? Because it's a broader term. So what is it that want to be done? So also we might just buy into one. If it is dissemination of information, we shall say, okay, can we talk about this dissemination of information? Okay. So I think that's why we are looking at it as an institution.
You've talked about inadequacies in policies. You've also talked about the aspects to bridge the information gap that lies there. Is it also time that we need the climate bill to be enacted upon so that it addresses such challenges?
I think there is not necessarily climate bill arrangement, but because I know that under Minister under the Minister of Green Economy, I think Department of Forest, no? Yeah, I think it's adequately putting up there. We have a lot of strategies. These are some of these strategies. They end up in this national climate what strategy. You know, it's just there. So these are there. But the question is, okay, are we trying to make sure that we make use of these pieces of laws in place? Okay, I think that's the thing. So I wouldn't want to say every time we have to put this, because we have several of them and be overloaded when we cannot even use the little we have. So if we have 100 of them, what are they going to do to us?
So as it is, we've got enough to address.
We have got enough to address what is there. But it's a question of, are we committed as a country? Are we committed as a country? Because you see, what hurts me most is that people have, if you and I is debatable, this time you call me at Sunday, I'll come and attend church here, then we can discuss that. What I'm saying is that we have put finances as the end itself. But you see, myself, I say finance is a catalyst. It's not an end itself. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Is that a lot of people, a lot of institutions will say we cannot reach there. We cannot do this because we have budgetary limitation. Okay? It's because we have tied it as a source of everything. This time with this technology we are having, you see, I was able, when somebody called me in the office, we are working on something, I was able to reach out to about 4 districts while sitting in my office, using my phone. I never asked the accounts to say, can you give me talk time to talk to these people? Because I'm committed, I want to see that this thing is delivered. So it's a question of, I think it's a question of, let us also have a paradigm shift in the way we look at certain things. Yeah, we should not be limiting ourselves because of finances. Yeah. Right away, I know Mr. Zulu can be able to talk to somebody in Porokoso if you really need something, and you'll get it. You don't need to jump into a bus up to Porokoso. And you don't need 1,000 kwacha for you to get that information. So what I'm trying to say is, can we be proactive in terms of reaching out to people? Can we make it like a program? Can the government make it a program, okay, that a lot of this, both print, electronic media and everything, have a say in the climate change? Okay. Can we do it as if it's a campaign, not a one-off thing? Let us not just celebrate Environmental Day. What happens afterwards? Okay. We can celebrate these other events. What happened when we celebrate these other events? The lucky part of them is that they have that continuous, discussion in them. World Health Day, you know that we always Timadwara, so we go back to hospital. Okay. Yeah. But when you talk about environment, somebody will just celebrate. Yesterday we heard, okay, this producer extension, what is going to be done. But afterwards, Mr. Zuru and Madam Spora here, what's next? We go back to our old ways. We wait for another day for World Environment Day. When it is done, we celebrate that day back. So what I'm trying to say is, can we make it deliberately, because it looks to be new. It has been there, but it looks to be new. So can these sectors which are involved make it a trend that we do a lot of ICE materials, a lot of them, okay? The way we are doing the constitution at the times, even these ministries, just print those. We have people who summarize them, send them bulk into the villages, send posters. You know, let us think outside the box. You know, if we are going to tackle this issue of environment, let us not be real in terms of our thinking. Let us think outside the box. Let us look, as those people say, thinking of unthinkable. Like you just, wow, this can happen. Okay. So I want to make sure that when we have the media system, the government has also its media system. Okay. In the past, when we were growing, some of us could see that by that time, Zanis would move in the compound, in the villages, announcing. By the way, I come from a village. I grew up in a village. And to me, a brazier was something that was not a head of. It was like, seeing as a brazier was like, well, what's all this about? But recently when I visited, I found the whole village is flooded with brazier.
They no longer use wood directly.
Yeah. So I said, this is the effect. You see. And I could see that vehicles from Chipata town to my village, you know, all over, fetching for firewood. You know. The hill which was keeping animals is no longer keeping animals. Even if the baboons and the monkeys have run away. So I'm trying to say that this is the effect which we are seeing, which is leading to many things. And at the end of the day, the danger of it, whether you like it or not, it will affect the development of the country. The economy can't grow. Okay? Because whatever happens, if people are starving, the money is allocated to other social infrastructure will be allocated to saving people's lives. Okay? So other sectors, many sectors in the process will suffer. Let me run you through the circles that when people are affected because of this climate change, the villager who had a garden, the garden dries up, so he has no income to send a child to school. This money he was getting here was for nutrition. So what happens now? This child is sick, goes to the hospital. The hospital has got no medicine to treat that because the system is gone. So there is loss of nutrition and loss of income at the household. But above all, because of this, the rivers are drying. Animals have got no pasture and no water to drink. So can you see how the climate, if it's not properly managed, can collapse the economy? It's not something that we need to take it lightly.
I think that's the human face that people need to see out there. Mostly they don't really associate it with themselves, they don't associate it with poverty, they just think it's just something there that affects, maybe other countries. And quite interesting, maybe what are some of your concluding remarks as we wind up on this segment?
I think, first of all, I want to thank you and hope that Camnet will continue exposing us to speak to people on the issues of climate, because we are there as climate, environment and climate change actors who would like to see that our messages reach out to people. And we will try to coordinate with our colleagues to ensure that what we are saying, is reach out to the remotest of the remote. But the onus of managing the environment is between you and I. Let's take care. Let's be mindful of what we do to the environment. Because whatever we are seeing now, it is merely reacting to us. We shot into it, so it is shooting back. It's defending itself now. And now it's defending itself in a very negative manner, where if we are not careful, there will be no life to talk about. So fellow Zambians and the fellow actors in the industry, let's reach out there and try to bridge information gap on climate change. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. We've been having a conversation with Mr. Ezra Banda from Keepers Zambia Foundation, with me being Zipporah Mshala, Nelson Zulu, and talking all things community participation in ending climate change been quite a very interesting time. This has been the Camnet TV Tuesday edition of the Breakfast Show. Hopefully you get to join our other colleagues tomorrow on the other side of the Camnet TV Breakfast Show as they look at governance, politics, as well as policies. For now, it's goodbye.